Thank you, Shepard. Well, the Bergdahl brawl just goes on and on and on, and now it is getting nasty. Surprise. Welcome, everybody. I'm Neil Cavuto. And it is the prisoner swap that has both Democrats and Republicans taking swipes, because after yet another closed-door briefing, frustrations on both sides mounting. Even a top Democrat saying the president could have avoided all of this if he simply picked up the phone. We're all over it right now with the fast and furious reaction. Mike Emanuel at the Capitol and Ed Henry at the White House. First to Mike. Mike, what can you tell us?
Well, Neil, good afternoon. The top Democrat on the House Armed Services Committee says even though it appears the White House does not trust Congress, they should have picked up the phone and called a few key members to say this deal was about to happen. House Speaker John Boehner today says this was a dangerous move.
The fact is that we have violated that policy, and as a result, we've made Americans less safe here and all around the world. And we're going to pay for this. There is not any doubt in my mind there are going to be lost lives associated with what came out of this.
Lawmakers also sounded furious when administration briefers told them 80 to 90 White House, Department of Defense and state officials were in the loop on the swap of Bo Bergdahl for the Taliban 5. The White House says that number is exaggerated, but didn't give a precise lower number. In terms of what the Taliban 5 will do long term, the Senate's top Democrat isn't making bold predictions.
No one can make a decision on what's going to happen in the out years. We just know during the first period of time in Qatar, they're going to be watched very closely, and we'll continue to monitor them. But I'm not going to be in the situation here of giving you some prophetic announcement as what these 5 men are going to do later on.
It appears relations between the White House and Congress have gone from bad to worse. Even allies here up on Capitol Hill are trying to defend the move, even though a lot of them are saying it could have been handled much better. Neil?
All right. Thank you, Mike. Well, Ted Henry at the White House on if the administration feels it could have handled it much better. What are you hearing, Ed?
Well, Neil, what's interesting is that the story from the administration sort of keeps evolving, and that may be one reason why the story remains alive. Today, White House spokesman Josh Earnest telling reporters, look, the reason why the president didn't keep Congress completely in the loop, as you heard Mike just reporting on, was because he didn't want to share operational details about a military mission. Problem, of course, is we haven't heard a single Democrat or Republican ask for the operational details of that military mission. Instead, they were saying they wanted to be kept in the loop on the fact that there were going to be 5 Taliban prisoners swapped for Sergeant Bergdahl. The other issue that popped up today is at that briefing last night among members of the House, a classified briefing with top administration officials about how all this went down. The officials were pressed on who really signed off on this swap in the end. The suggestion was it was Defense Secretary Chuck Hagel, not the president. I pressed Josh Earnest on that. Listen to that, plus Republicans wondering what's going on. Listen.
The president signed off on this, just to be clear, or did Chuck Hagel? Did the president sign off on this swap?
Well, the president's the commander-in-chief, and the president's the one that's ultimately responsible for making sure that we fulfill this commitment, that we don't leave anybody behind.
I think when I first heard about it, I saw the president with the Bergdahls on television. I didn't see Secretary Hagel. It sounded like it was a presidential program all the way.
The question, of course, is behind closed doors were administration officials trying to insulate the president and suggest this was a decision made by the Defense Secretary, Chuck Hagel. Well, guess what? We'll have a chance to hear directly from Chuck Hagel. He's going before Buck McKeon's committee tomorrow, the House Armed Services Committee, where for the first time in public anyway, we'll hear top administration officials grilled on exactly who made the decision, why the decision was made, and of course why Congress claims anyway they were kept out of the loop, something the administration insists they were told about months ago, if not in recent days. Neil?
Ed, in your conversations at the White House, did they suspect that this would not go down well, whether people were given advance warning or general warning or not? Did they know that this was going to have like a hornet's nest reaction?
They knew it was going to be controversial, but they acknowledged privately they didn't know it was going to be quite this strong, especially because, as you noted at the top, sure, there's Republicans pouncing on it. We quoted Buck McKeon there, but you have Democrat Adam Smith, who's the top Democrat, the counterpart to Buck McKeon, who just a few moments ago told our Chad Pergram up on Capitol Hill that, he generally defends what the president did, but says if he had just kept us in the loop, there'd be so much less criticism up here. That's coming from a Democrat, on top of what we heard from Democrat Dianne Feinstein. So yes, they knew it would be a hornet's nest, but not quite this big, Neil.
Thank you very much, Ed Henry. And by the way, Buck McKeon will be our special guest tomorrow on this. In the meantime, did Gitmo detainees know about the Taliban prisoner swap even before Congress did? Well, the Weekly Standard's John McCormick is doing some digging, and you'll be surprised what Mr. McCormick has found out. Tell us, John, what did you find out?
Well, sources told Steve Hayes, my colleague at the Weekly Standard, that detainees at Gitmo knew something very big was up and may well have known that these 5 men in particular were going to be transferred. There are telltale signs of a transfer, new procedures, heightened security. All those things would have been expected to have been in place before this happened. So the administration has claimed they didn't have time to tell Congress, when we know that now the detainees very likely knew about this before even members of our own government knew.
How were they telegraphed? In other words, I think the excuse given for rearranging some of the detainees was preparation ahead of a hurricane, but they quickly surmised that was bogus. Then what happened?
Well, that was one of the cover stories that was out there, and we've also had confirmation from one of the lawyers who has represented some Gitmo detainees, and he told the Associated Press that they saw right through this claim that there was a hurricane coming. They knew that something big was up, and they likely, this is a very low-level facility where these particular detainees were held. They could communicate openly, so they probably were all talking about this in the day or two prior to this transfer happening.
Yeah, I heard one say that they just looked up in the sky and they dismissed that one. But let me ask you about whether, or you had heard, or any of your colleagues had heard, that the detainees, especially the 5 that would later be part of this swap, were separated by some accounts hours, if not days, ahead of the formal announcement.
Well, you have had one government official at least saying that we can't prove that this happened, but there's really no reason to think that it didn't happen. So by all accounts, it seems likely that these detainees, fellow detainees knew before our own members of Congress, and they're very upset about this on Capitol Hill right now. Even as you mentioned before, Dianne Feinstein, she's very upset that the administration has lied about this, because they have used claims such as that Bergdahl's health was deteriorating, but in fact, you've had the Director of National Intelligence, James Clapper, say that the intelligence wouldn't support that. Senator Feinstein herself doesn't believe that's the case. So there's growing anger on both sides of the aisle on Capitol Hill that they've given false reasons for not informing Congress.
But John, I just want to be clear, there's no proof that the Taliban detainees there knew about this, or for that matter, even the superiors there who were shuffling them around knew. It's just highly suspected because of the movements?
According to very good sources with knowledge of the transfer, told Steve Hayes that they knew something big was up and may have known that. So I do strongly suspect that everyone there knew, a lot of people down there knew what was going to happen.
All right, because you're getting the brush back over there that was not the case, but just wanted to present that. John, thank you very, very much. So regardless of who knew what and when, is the Taliban now feeling pretty emboldened? Well, judging by some recent incidents, you have to wonder, attacking a training facility near Karachi airport in Pakistan, second time today. The first attack on Sunday left 26 people dead, 10 Taliban fighters killed, some of those fighters blowing themselves up. CIA operative Wayne Simmons says it's pretty clear they're feeling pretty emboldened. Wayne, what do you make of all this?
Well, I'm alarmed, to put it mildly, Neil. I would tell you that the President Obama's Cairo speech in 2009 signaled the Islamic world that they had a friend in the White House. And I would tell you without any shadow of a doubt that the release of these 5 terrorism intellectuals signaled the terrorist world that they had an incompetent, absolutely inept administration running the show for the United States.
It's easy to judge now, but what explains the initial reaction on the part of the, congressmen on both sides of the aisle, feeling relieved about the release, happy about the release, apparently aware of the broad aspects of the deal. When did they wake up and realize, was it part of the deal that they realized who these 5 guys were? What changed? Because their initial reaction, I wouldn't say was euphoria, but it was relief that an America was coming home. Then when did they get this suddenly different posture?
Well, Neil, I think you summed it up. You're making the case that, look, the mere fact that that could be the case tells you that the Obama administration is run by inept morons. I've said this before.
No, I'm saying the Republicans. No. I'm sorry, I wasn't clear. The Republicans who praised his release and knew there was a prisoner swap involved,
right.
They liked it. I guess what I'm asking is, did they not know the Gitmo detainees who were part of that swap and then they got ticked off? Or did they see the public reaction and then say, oh my gosh, now we got to be ticked off?
Well, you know, I don't know. We'd have to ask them, but that is ignorance on either side of the aisle. I don't care who it is. We've got 5 terrorism intellectuals, Neil. What that means is these are the guys who have the strategic and tactical intellect to take down Twin Towers, to take down aircraft, to blow up Bali nightclubs, to do Beirut bombings. That's who these 5 guys are. The mere fact that some on both sides of the aisle are saying, we didn't know, tells you right away that the level of incompetence exceeds anything that any of us ever imagined, Neil.
Well, would there be a situation, Wayne, where you would entertain a swap of any sort, either for Gitmo or detainees we have at other facilities, or would Wayne Simmons just say, no, it's always a bad idea?
Look, I want my American soldiers home. I want them home today. But what we don't do, Neil, under any circumstance, number one, our mantra always has been, we do not negotiate. And we darn sure don't start negotiating on a political level, as Obama clearly has. He's not fooling anyone by helping to clear Gitmo out. And by the way, I've been there 3 times, and I see how easy it is to communicate these terrorists. So, you don't make that deal, Neil, and you especially don't make it a deal. And this is not hindsight, Neil. Please understand, this is not me coming in after the fact. I'm telling you, we don't make a deal. We put our special ops guys in, we find this guy, and we go get him. But we don't turn 5 guys loose that are absolutely going to come back, Neil. We have not heard the last of these guys. And when we do, we're all going to remember this fatal day.
Wayne Simmons, thank you.
Thank you, Neil.